I'll mute myself again. So you're live now.
Hello and welcome to Book in a Box Author Talks with Charlene Antrobus, the writer of A Vow of Blood of Shadow and Blood. I had to get that correct. My mind wanted to alphabetize it. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for joining me, Charlene.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, and thank you to all the people who have joined us at home and who have waited a couple of minutes. We are so happy to have you here, and we hope we have a good hour. I wanted, as always, to say that this talk will be spoiler-filled. We will be talking about the books in its entirety, so if you have not read the book yet or have not finished it, you can pause this video, you can leave the live, and you can come back later. It will be filmed. Because we will spoil stuff. So be warned. You can also right now in the chat start writing your questions for Charlene, and we will come to it in the end. Charlene, thank you so much for writing this amazing book.
Thank you.
I want to say transforming the vampire book, because I almost felt as if Adina were more like the classical hunting vampire that we know than the actual vampires. Was this intentional?
Yeah, to some degree. It kind of was a story about somebody. I kind of asked two questions. The first was, how far do we go for the people that we love? And kind of, what do we think we know as opposed to what is actually reality? And those are two kind of things that I think Adina grapples with throughout the whole book. And so it really started more as a journey of like that love that she obviously has for Willow. How far would she go for that? And that kind of made her maybe do things that she wouldn't usually do, which made her a bit more violent. Because I had to ask myself, if I was in that kind of position, I have such a great relationship with my sister, how far would I go to save her? And so it was an interesting question, and then put that in a fantasy world, and we got Adina.
But I think there's this amazing scene where Adina describes how she usually stalks her prey and she hunts them and then she lures them away. And that is something you would typically expect of the vampire. So I thought it was really great seeing, okay, well, a human can also use this.
Absolutely.
To their advantage.
And I wanted to play on that because obviously I was really conscious that her power wasn't really one that would enable her to overpower a vampire. So she had to be really smart and tricky with it. And it kind of made me think about that thing of men generally don't see women as dangerous. And so a lot of times that's how women can get kind of won over on men. It's more about the wits. And so though she's not stronger than the vampires physically, she was smarter and she just played to their desperation, which is always going to be blood. And so she knew she would get them if she did that. So it was playing with that kind of thing of an inner strength rather than an outer strength.
There's also something almost funny about these classical monsters being afraid of this slayer character and serial killer, and it turning out to be a human woman that they in no way fear.
At all. Until they realize what she can do.
Until they realize. Yeah,
100%.
How did you find the inspiration for, you talked about the sisterly bond, but how did you find the inspiration for this world that is almost divided into three? You have the born vampires and then the sired vampires and a human at the bottom. How did you came up with?
So I really love dystopian and I love fantasy, and I wanted to kind of have a kind of feel for both. And so originally, obviously, the first question I'd ever asked myself was, because I'm obsessed with vampires and I love them, and I asked myself, what would actually happen if vampires took over? Because a lot of the things we see, they are still in the shadows. They are kind of like secretive. So I thought, what would a world look like if they were in control and we were kind of slaves to them and we'd like lost this war? What would that look like? And so I started to build it from there and think, okay, where did vampires come from? I get really obsessed with the history of, so where did they come from? And if there was the first vampires, then how did we get more vampires? Were they just born or were they bitten? And then once I kind of had that idea that some were born and some were bitten, there had to be differences in what they could do. So for example, like access to the shadow powers, I knew the bitten weren't ever going to get. I knew that the bitten weren't going to be these beautiful vampires that were just going to look ordinary as we do, because this is what we are. So it's more being frozen in time, and I wanted to just kind of create that kind of dynamic and class difference between the vampires as well as the humans. So there was just layers on layers of kind of forms of oppression and forms of class and elitism. I just found it really interesting to explore that, and in both sides, with the humans and the vampires.
Yeah. And you talk about this reality of history. And we do see in the book that there is the reality of history that the humans have and that the vampires have. And then there is perhaps a third version that has been manipulated by this demon overlord. And most of it seems to me to stem from a decision by the vampires to delete history, to not have written records, to not have a verbal history of suppressing what really happened, and that hundreds of years later come back to bite them in the ass.
Absolutely, yeah.
But is this something that only the Court of Shadows did, or is it global? Did the other courts in the book also do that?
Yeah, with obviously you've got the realm, and I won't talk too much about the other courts because that will come to play later, but they all have a very different way that they deal with their humans and they deal with the history. One thing is 100% across the board is that they were never going to kind of admit that the humans started the war, because obviously that would make them look weak. They have to, in order to keep the kind of oppressive system and world that they've created, they need the humans to feel that they are underneath and beneath them, and there is no way that they can rise above that, because they can't afford a repeat of history, because actually they were going to lose no matter what. If they beat the humans and got rid of them, then that's their food source gone. So it was kind of a lose-lose situation, and they needed to find that happy medium, but also ensure that it didn't repeat itself, and that has to come from the deleting of history and the changing, which I find really fascinating in life, that I think that happens. Sometimes I look at history and I think, I wonder if we were to be able to go back in time or ask somebody who lived there, how different would the story be as opposed to the one we're being told now. I find that very fascinating.
Yeah, this about that the victor is the one deciding history.
Yeah. So,
I will try to say it correctly now. A Vow of Shadow and Blood is your first book. So how was your writing process, being a first-time author?
So interestingly, I'm technically not a first-time author. So in 2012, no, you wouldn't know. Nobody would know. In 2012, I did self-publish some romance books very badly, very terribly. Nobody will ever see them. They're gone. But I did do it, and I kind of got a love for it. But then I got obsessed with fantasy, and I realised how much I loved writing, and I wanted to do it properly. So I kind of started again with this. And A Vow of Shadow and Blood was the first book that I actually plotted, because I am such a pantster. Like, I just go where the story tells me to go. But because I knew there were so many twists and turns and secrets that were had, I needed everything to just make sense. So I kind of plotted it out. I still, when I got to each chapter and scene, I played around and made some stuff up that weren't supposed to be there. Like, Finn was not supposed to be that big a character. That just happened. I realised, like, from the first scene I wrote, I was like, oh, he's got to stay. So little things like that happened. But I did plot out kind of the main kind of structure so that I would know where I was going.
And I'm going to be a little cheeky, because you've already alluded to it. You also plotted out more than this book, because there is on your website an unfinished product, unpublished.
So I have a very basic overview of books 2, 3, and 4. And again, in writing book 1, some of that changed. So I always wait till I get to the point where I'm writing it to do a more in-depth outline. But I definitely know where book 4 ends. I know the overall of where that's going. 100%.
I'm really looking forward to that. And I know someone else who is looking forward to that is Talita, who is one of our Book in a Box subscribers who have received your book last month and also have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
should we welcome Talita to the call?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Talita, if you could turn on your camera now. We can
Um,
see you as well.
Let me check. Why do I turn it on? Oh, wait.
There's
Is it working? Yes.
Yeah,
Hi.
we can see you. Hi. And
Hi.
welcome to the author talk as well.
Yes, no problem.
I have a questions for you first, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Did you enjoy the book?
Yeah, very much so. I actually read the arc of this book, and I think I'm trying to remember how I got the arc. I think maybe TikTok or something.
Probably
Maybe we
Threads,
even
maybe.
spoke. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
I just know I read it, and then I saw, as I already was a subscriber for Book in a Box, and then I saw that one, and I was actually saving money, so I actually had to skip. I'm like, no, I can't skip now. So now I have it here.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, but
Well,
I really loved the
I'm
book.
happy you didn't skip because it is a really good book.
No, yeah, that's absolutely true. I really love the book. I liked the twists in it, and it was the pacing was good. I was never bored, and I liked her just a spicy character, like choosing to wear the silver dress instead of the black dress, just out of defiance. I love that.
She's very defiant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Apparently, I like defiance.
In Danish, we would call her. We would say she has a bone in her nose because it's she's very strong character. Who, yeah, it's a weird saying, but it means that you have you follow your nose because you know where it's pointing is the right direction for you, and then you just power through in that direction.
That actually makes a lot of sense to be fair.
Oh.
Do you have? I know you have a question because you mentioned it earlier that you have taken notes, which is a good sign.
It's been a little while since I read the book, but I remember.
I keep saying that. I keep trying to think like some of the things. I'm like, I can't remember writing some of those.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I was just with the whole Julian thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was explained, but now I'm wondering what it was that he was able to read. Well, not read her mind. Did he read her mind? He could hear her speaking to what was his name? Athriel?
Athriel, yeah.
Yes.
So because obviously I can't go into it too much because some of it is spoiler territory for book 2. But what I can say is because the impures are parts of Athriel, they are technically extensions of him. So they are him. So the only way I could describe it is that is why Julian could hear him. It was just more of a shock to obviously Athriel at the time because he didn't remember who he was or anything about himself whilst he was contained within Adina. And then obviously for Adina, she had no clue what was going on. But it is because he is technically Athriel, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, I get it. Well, I really love the plot twist at the end. Just when he got quiet, I'm like, there is something wrong.
I was also writing questions like, oh, I have to, what happened with him? And then you come to the end like, oh, he's not there anymore. That's what happened. That's why he's quiet.
Right. Yeah. Well, it really made me excited for book 2.
I actually have a question regarding Athriel as well. Is he literally being sucked out of her each time is drinking her blood?
So, yes. So the bond and the drinking of the blood is like a doorway, if you imagine it as that.
Yeah.
So every time Carius drinks from Adina, it opens that doorway and he
Yeah.
can get out a little bit more. And the more he is out of Adina, the more he begins to know who he is. So it becomes an intentional, almost, once he's in the side of Carius, he starts to drag himself out the more that he knows what's going on, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Magic. Magic is also being carried through blood, so it makes sense that it can work in this way as well.
There has to be, in my head when I was figuring it out, I was like, if he has been cursed to be in Adina, whenever I feel like magic like that is used, there is a balance, and there has to be a balance. So if there is a way to trap him, there has to be a way that he was able to come out, and that was the bond. So it just comes with a cost, and it's explained a lot more in book 2. That's why I'm being really careful what I say, because there's a lot more explanation as to how that works and why that works and how it comes to be in book 2, and a lot more about the history of how it came to be.
I'm looking forward to it. But I also want to say, sorry, Talita, I think you might had a question when I jumped in.
Well, I was wondering which character was the most fun for you to write the dialogue for?
Oh, it's between Finn, Athriel, and Carius. I had the most fun with those scenes, like the banter between Athriel and Adina during certain things, where it was that thing of like having a really annoying know-it-all like sibling who is with you all the time, and you're kind of like, I want to do this on my own, but they're constantly there telling you, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or you didn't, I would have done it this way. So I had a lot of fun with Athriel, but then I didn't realise I was going to have as much fun with Finn, because Finn is, in my head anyway, hilarious. I absolutely loved writing Finn, and his dynamic with Adina, that kind of flirty, but he's also really intelligent, which is really annoying to Adina, because why does it have to be him? So I enjoyed the dynamic of them two. They probably might have been my favourite dynamic to write. Out of everyone. Yeah, they were my favorites.
They're also great characters.
Yeah.
Thank you. I always say Finn is quite Carrion coded. If you've read Quicksilver, I feel like they would either love each other or hate each other, because there's some, like, I feel like there's a little string there, because I like that character.
Yeah, but maybe it would be too much for them to...
Way too much, and way too much for anybody that has to be around the two of them at the same time.
Which character were your favorite, Talita?
Good question. Well,
I have to say my favorite was actually the sister. Because I think that she is incredibly self-aware and brave in the end, knowing I'm not me anymore.
Yes.
Please stop me from doing something I will regret. I thought that was...
I never ever base characters on people in real life, but Willow was the only one that is really similar to my sister. So we always have this joke where she's always like, you killed me and you made all these things go wrong with me, because there are so many similarities. So that kind of strength and that self-awareness is what I see in my sister. And so it was kind of, because obviously when I was writing the book, my sister got quite ill during that year, so there was a lot of kind of like overlaps that ended up going in, and certain scenes that weren't supposed to exist that ended up existing as a result of that, between like Willow and Adina, and just that drive to really save her. It kind of changed the feel of it for me when I was writing it. So yeah.
Did you have problem? Well, not a problem. Well, I had a problem with it. You killed off Ajax, and I really liked Ajax.
No, do you know, before I wrote the book, I always knew that was going to happen. That was like from when it was just an idea in my head. I knew it was going to happen. It was one of two people. It was Ajax or it was Isa, and I knew it was one of them. It hurt more when I got to know him when I was writing him, I thought if I do this, I'm never gonna get to write him again. But I still feel like it was the right move. But I hated it. I didn't enjoy doing that at all.
Oh, I hated it too.
Yeah, I was gutted, and I had always envisioned the first time that we ever heard Ivana's voice was in that scene, and that scene was in my head from way before I wrote it, that scream and what it meant. And so it was such a pivotal part for her character as well, that I knew it was always going to happen, and I couldn't change it once it kind of was there. But I am sad. But it had to happen.
True. I'm sad for her too.
But there is, you say you're never gonna write him again. Once you have finished book 4, there is 100 years of vampire life
There
prequels
is, yeah.
about Ajax that is possible.
There definitely is, to be honest. So never say never, but not in this series. Sorry.
4 books. How long of a
Mhm.
time frame are we talking about?
Oh, I'm gonna not tell you that because it might spoil some things, but it's gonna head to quite a high point and then dip. That's the most I'll give you. Is a lot's gonna happen and people aren't gonna be safe.
Ah.
Sorry. They're not gonna be safe.
So
When
how
you're
do
in
you plan
situations
that?
like this, they're not, are they? Because I always feel like I love it being realistic. So if we are going into a kind of a war or a dangerous situation, sadly, people are going to die, and we are going to lose people. So sorry.
No, I know. I'm always sad, but I know it has to happen. Otherwise, the
It
book would be
does.
boring.
That's true. Yeah.
Then it would be in the cozy fantasy section, and that's
Yeah.
not the feel we have here.
No, sorry. No, I don't think I could write cozy. My mind goes a bit too dark. I don't think I could do it.
Well, that was clear by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also almost got cozy in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. then it
But
all
you won't mention the time frame in universe. Could you, for me and Talita and the viewers, mention the time frame in the real life? When will we get book 2,
So the
book 3,
second
book 4?
book 2 and 3, I'm hoping will come out this year.
Yes.
That's what I'll say. I won't give any dates because I gave a date the first time and I nearly killed myself writing that book. So I'm not going to give a date, but my aim is that book 2 and 3 will be out this year. That is the plan.
That's a good news.
And just to throw out, I have a birthday in July, so if it could be a birthday present for me,
Could be.
or
Oh, me too.
That could happen.
Yeah,
That could definitely happen. It could. 7 months. It could happen.
Now you have another 6 months for the 3rd one,
Mm-hmm.
like a Christmas
Exactly.
present.
yeah.
There you go. That would be fair. I think that would be fair.
And then Book in a Box has to do the special editions, of course.
Oh yeah, I need the set now because the first one is beautiful. It's stunning. I'm actually obsessed with it. Beautiful.
It
I
is
also really like the what's it called? The book thingy.
The
I
bookmark.
really like that one as well.
Yeah. I think me and Cecile were really in sync about the vision for the book, and it was perfect. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really think the bookmarks are almost the best part because they're unique and you can they're pieces of art that you can use in other books as well.
Mhm.
I really
Yeah. I think it's really nice, the personalized bookmarks. I think they're really a nice touch. They are really nice. Yeah.
And I of course cannot promise anything, but I will be a champion in the office for a complete set.
That's good.
That would be perfect.
Can I ask a question? And then I'll bring the ball back to Talita. Because I almost got, at the beginning of the book, I got this Venice masquerade feel from the world. And I thought she goes to the blood ring wearing gold masks, and that was almost the period that I pictured in. And then Tori mentions she's a superhero, and it threw me completely off. I was like, I have no idea.
So that was quite purposeful. So in my head, I kind of imagined that the war occurred during what would be our time now. So it would be kind of a vampires were in hiding as we would imagine them to be in our world as it is. Then they win, and then you'll notice there's kind of references to the humans being stripped of certain things, and then I find a specific way to say it because I don't think they'd use certain words that we do now, but certain technologies and things, they're stripped completely back to where it's almost we've gone back in time, and that's because of the fact that the only way humans really won the war, or would have had a chance of almost winning the war, would be through the certain technologies that we could build. If we're being honest, there is no other way that there were going to be vampires. So it would have been because they had things like guns and technology and different things that they could do, advanced things and weapons. And so I imagine it's set a really, really long time after our period now, where it's got like touches of things from the past, but touches of things that are still familiar to us. So it's almost like mixed up, and that was just done on purpose. The only real vibe I liked was the kind of gothic kind of, kind of that London gothic vibe. I loved that feel, but it was almost like we were dragged back to that time to prevent humans from being able to be that intelligent again. So it makes sense that you'll hear things like a superhero, but the reality is a superhero wouldn't really exist in the past, and it was kind of done on purpose. So it was kind of a new feel.
That was really cool. I do get an idea. Is potency and magic in the blood than just a leftover piece of technology or gene manipulation that we cannot understand in this dystopian future?
No. So I think I do say this in book 1. If I spoil book 2, I'm sorry. I don't think I will. No, so the idea is that humans have always had magic in their blood, and that is, I wanted to do a twist on it. So obviously a lot of times when you see vampires and blood, they are drinking it to survive, to live. It is food. I didn't want it to be food, because if you notice, vampires can eat what we eat. They eat in the books, like Carius is always having these feats. I wanted it to be that they got something really specific from the blood, so it was magic, and there were just lines of humans that carried a lot more magic than other ones. So like Adina has a lot of magic in her bloodline. There are reasons for that will come out later, which I won't say now, but there are different humans, and some humans don't have very many, and then you get humans that don't have any at all, like your Finns. So I wanted to play with that as well and just give it a different thing. I didn't want them to be a food source. I wanted it to be a power that if they don't drink the blood, they would lose the ability to do shadow magic. They would start aging a lot quicker and die, things like that, because all of those things are magic. They would lose their senses, their heightened senses, because it's all a form of magic. So they would essentially almost go back to being human, but with that, because of the magic that's kind of containing them and keeping them, which is why you see Carius get so almost ill looking and gaunt when he bonds with Adina and he can't feed from anybody else, because the access to the magic is cut off and he needs to be able to access it, but he can only access Adina's magic because of the bond. So it was just playing with things like that. I just wanted it to be a little bit different, familiar but different.
Yes, it makes sense, and I think it works really well.
Thank you.
Now I promised Talita a chance.
Well, you did mention it a bit before. Your sister in real life.
Yeah.
That you have such a great bond with her, but then you wrote Willow and thinking of your sister, but then you killed Willow. Wasn't that like an hard to write emotionally?
Yeah, it was. I do say, and I say this to my sister, there are parts of Willow that are her, because she's always like, you killed me. I'm like, I didn't kill you. There are parts that there are things that I admire about her that I put in Willow. So her strength, her ability to be dealing with what she's dealing with and still push forward and still be able to say, I don't want you to sacrifice yourself for me. We have those conversations. So that plays into that. But the other thing that I was exploring with Adina was that she has almost that oldest child syndrome where they sacrifice everything for everybody and they sometimes lose themselves in that, which I've been in that place where you kind of don't know who you are or you lose sight of who you are. And in the book, because obviously I want Adina to grow, her entire existence in book 1 is completely about protecting Willow. That is her life. She has nothing else. She's fed on and she protects Willow, and that is it. And it just goes round and round. And I think when she gets to the palace with the vampires, it's actually the first time, which is why she fights it so much. It's the first time her experiencing having something for herself, having like those feelings for Carius are really confusing, because she's never allowed herself to feel something that's just solely hers. She obviously has Tori, but they were pushed into a situation together where they grew up together. Cora grew up together. But this is the time where she gets to decide, do I want to be friends with these people like Piper and Isa and Ajax, you know? And she gets to decide that. And so I knew, sadly, that in order for us to explore that more and for her to find her purpose, Willow would have to be gone. And it sounds really awful, but there was no way. If Willow stayed, Adina's always going to put Willow before her, and she kind of needs to learn how to live her life for herself and understand that and it's something Willow says to her, that you have a higher purpose, there's something more. And Adina doesn't want to accept that, and she doesn't know how to do that. And I thought the only way she's going to learn is if she has no choice but to kind of lose the thing that she's created her identity around, which is devastating. But I think we're going to see a very interesting version of Adina in book 2 because of that. So yeah, it was sad though. Obviously, I also knew that scene was going to happen from before I wrote it, so that one was always going to be a sad one to write.
But I think we almost get a foreshadowing of it in the speech Tori has with her about chosen family, how, well, we're not related by blood, but you're still my sister. I'm still Willow's sister. And that she doesn't really understand the bond that you can have with the people you chose. And even when she moves into the palace, I get the sense that she doesn't understand she's actually becoming a part of their family until she loses the blood.
And also understanding that having those bonds doesn't mean that she has to take care of those people. You can just have a bond with someone and they benefit your life simply because you love them or you care about them or you have a good time. She links everything to taking care of people. Even with Tori, if you notice, as much as Tori wanted to do things to help Willow, like Adina just wanted to take control all the time, and it's something she had to learn. And so it was horrible, but a lot of those people that she had built that with had to kind of be removed in order for her to find herself. So it was sad with Tori and Willow, but they kind of were almost, it sounds horrible, chess pieces that kind of needed to move in order for her to reach the other side, because she doesn't understand how to just have a relationship and almost gain something from it, because she doesn't allow herself to have that. So yeah, it was sad with Tori as well. That one was a hard one.
Because I also felt with you, Talita, for Ajax, but I thought Tori was so tragic, because she's basically telling this person she views as a sister, hey, I love you too, and she gets nothing back. Like, well, like right before she dies, her whole world is like, oh, you don't love me, or you don't know you love me as a sister.
Yeah, it was devastating.
Which is like
that one was really sad.
You basically killed off her whole family.
To be honest, practically that is what actually happened. I'm surprised Cora survived. It's the only one. But yeah, she lost everything. She did. When I finished the book, I kind of was like, God, she lost quite a lot. I didn't mean to make her lose so much, but it naturally was like it. All of them were stepping stones. Like Tori was the first thing, and the guilt and the, but it didn't send her in the right direction. It
Mm.
sent her on the same path of still being like, well, I'm the only one that can save Willow. I've got to do this. And she wasn't thinking rationally, even when Athriel said to her when they first got to the palace, take time, like slow down. We don't just need to do it. And she's like, nope, 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 I've got to do it. And she's headstrong, but sometimes she just makes very rash decisions that have big consequences. And then she has to deal with it.
Also, the sister aspect that you were talking about earlier, that your sister said, "Oh, you killed me."
Yeah.
I also thought, oh, maybe there's some part of Tori in your sister as well, but that doesn't really help because you also kill her.
Yes.
But is
Don't
there
let her
some
hear you
part?
say that. She'll never forgive me.
So, is there a hope for your sister that there's also a part of her in Piper or Isa, and that they get to survive?
I feel like I say, I never intentionally write about real people in fiction, because the whole point of me writing fiction is it's an escape, and I love like exploring it. But it wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that those female friendships, and exploring it, is a reflection of, I think I have been very blessed in life that I have some really fantastic female friendships. And so I really wanted Adina to experience that, especially somewhere where she didn't think she'd find it, so in a palace full of vampires. So I knew that she was going to start to get those friendships with Isa and Piper. Those were going to be easy ones. The Kaya one is a little different. That's a challenge one. But I loved seeing their relationship change as well, even though, and I think that's because in some ways Kaya and Adina are quite similar in that they're very strong-headed and they have their goal and they think they're right. And then you've got Ivana, who is just a very complex and different character. There's so much about her, but you can't hear that and you don't know what's going on in her head. And I think the only one that could really understand her like that was actually Ajax. So it's going to be really interesting in book 2 to explore some more of those friendships and a different version of friendship for her, because like I say, I do think she took on a caregiver role with Tori and with Willow, and even to some degree with Cora. And so I think it's really interesting for her to have friendships with people like Kaya and Ivana, for example, who really don't need her to take care of them. There's something else that they need from her. So it'll be interesting to explore that and kind of see where that goes as well.
Yeah, and see how if she allows herself to navigate her grief.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
gonna be the
sure
one.
that will
Yeah.
be on
Oh,
her
yeah.
plan, but
Yeah, there's a lot of grieving that's going to happen in book 2. A lot
I
of
already
things.
had so much grief in book 1.
Yeah, yeah.
To
But
be
it's
honest,
going to be the aftermath of
right?
that now. Yeah.
Because I
but
love
I
the.
feel like sorry.
I was just gonna say I love the emotional turmoil, but I also hate it. It's like a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
So whenever you read something, you can just scream at your book, like when Carrion suddenly like backtracked almost. Like, what are you doing? Because I was already invested in him. I'm like, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
you took the tooth of the fang
Yeah.
of Piper, which was really sad. I mean,
Yeah.
basically tortured everyone.
Yeah. That funnily enough was not meant to be a scene. It happened was it in like the second draft that added it in, I think? Because I felt like it was devastating and it was horrible, but it was really important for Adina to see what the cost of what she's done has been, and to start to question herself of, were the vampires that I was doing this to all bad, or were some of them Pipers and Ajaxes? Like, and she needed to also see the cost of what that meant to them. Like, a fang isn't just okay, I just need to get the venom out and go. for them, it's like losing a limb. It's who they are. They're not really vampires without the fangs, and so it was supposed to be really hard hitting, and it was supposed to be that Adina would have to sit and watch that and think about the cost of that and what she might have caused for somebody else, and yeah, to let that play on her mind a little bit. It was a big part of her journey, and a horrible scene to write. Very horrible, because I really
Can
like
imagine.
Piper. I love Piper, and it was very horrible. Yeah.
Also, there is this almost like a bubble she puts around herself in order not to feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like she was forced to actually feel this.
Yeah.
That you cannot run from this. You're literally being chained and forced to watch this.
Yeah. I feel like that whole scene where they're in that cell, she's forced to deal with a lot of things and confront with a lot, because obviously Kaya never backs down. She's going to speak her mind. Ajax tries to do it the nice way. Kaya doesn't care. And so there are things that Kaya says to her there as well that she's confronted with, and she has to hear them whether she likes it or not, and understand that your version of things or your view of things are not necessarily correct. And it was also, I think, frustrating for Kaya that at this stage, when Adina's been with them for so long, that she still has those views. But I also think that that's reality. When something is ingrained and that is your belief system, it doesn't just change overnight. It is a slow process, and there's still prejudices that you will have, and views that you will have, that you have to unlearn. And I think her being forced to witness some of those things, like even witnessing with Kaya, when the one of the guys with Finn's dad were kind of grabbing her and stuff, the fear, because that's the first time you see fear in Kaya. She's very like, she doesn't really care, and it made her realize that they're almost human. And you know, she stops, I think Athria points it out at a point, she stops calling them like female and male, because before that she didn't see them as people, just like a female vampire and male vampire. And then there comes a point where she doesn't realize, she starts like saying, oh, that man, that woman, whatever, because she starts to see them as people and not just creatures anymore. And so it's like a slow, you know, growth for Adina, which was interesting to play with.
But I'm guessing it's also a process, because she starts out as being a blood slave. Like
Yeah.
The humans might have started a war and they might have done atrocities as well, and she might have killed, but she's still a literal slave. She's forcefully taking her blood. Some may force her to have pleasure, other may force her to have pain, which from a young age must fuck her up. Sorry about the language.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And then coming to a place and learning. I have to be honest, I was actually a little angry at Piper, because she doesn't see where Adina is coming from. Like, she must at some point know, okay, she comes from this blood house, this is her life, this is what she's been through, and at the same time being like, oh yeah, I wanted to do some more, and Piper almost feels sorry for herself that she wasn't able to do something else, and that made me
No, go on, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, that made me a little angry, because it's you
I hear you. Yeah,
someone else's pain is bigger right now.
Yeah, I think with Adina and Piper, in some ways there's that similarity, which is what essentially links them in the end, because Adina has only seen the world from her view, which is exactly what you said. She is a blood slave. She has seen these things, like in the opening scene we see that she sees someone get decapitated, she gets burnt, she sees that they just treat them like they're nothing. Whereas from Piper's perspective, her and her little crew, if we want to call it that, they don't technically treat humans like that. So from Piper's view, Piper's in love with a human who she didn't want to force, you know, to be a vampire. She tries to see the good in humanity. And I think because Piper, maybe if Piper was forced to go to a blood house and see how that looks and what it's like. If she was forced to go to a blood ring and see that, she hasn't seen the same things Adina's seen. So from her perspective, no, but we're good. So
Yeah.
not all vampires are like that, but it's not enough because she doesn't understand that. But Adina's lived that experience, and it's very similar in that when Finn points out to Adina that she has a lot of privilege as a human, she thinks like, you know, I'm a blood slave, it's the worst thing ever. And Finn's like, actually, being a blood
You have
slave
food.
gives you have food and you have security and you're taken care of. And all of them have things that are not okay with what's happening. All of them have a level of privilege, and then they have a level of non-privilege. And it's about being able to come together and realize, actually, we all need to fix this world because none of us are where we should be. Things are not okay for anybody, and nobody's is worse than anybody's necessarily. It's just different. And so it's about them all coming together and realizing, actually, we have all suffered in different ways because of this war, because of a war we weren't even necessarily part of, for like Adina and Finn. How do we make things better without making each other the enemy again and again, and repeating those same mistakes that were made so long ago before us? So I think that's where it comes with Piper, is that she does see the world as like this sweet, lovely place because she's this sweet, lovely person. And so she can't quite fathom what Adina has seen. I think when she had her fang pulled out, that's probably the worst of what she's seen, because she's usually in a place of power where she is protected and those things don't happen to her. So that's probably the closest she's ever got to seeing the world the way that Adina sees it. So I think that's where they kind of have that lack of understanding with each other.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
I actually had a question about the scene with the impure boy. When she was wandering in the castle, and there was this boy showing up, which was really creepy.
Yes.
Because when you read it, you don't really necessarily expect it, because it's not necessarily like a horror book, but it kind of felt like a horror book at that moment.
Yeah,
I liked it, but it was still creepy.
I hate horror as well. Like, I get really scared of like things where people are possessed, so I don't know how I wrote those.
Well, you did good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, I knew that. So this is a really funny story, but when I first was coming up with the idea, I originally was going to make the impures werewolves, and they were going to be like the first werewolf race, and have that kind of war with vampires. But as I kept going, it just didn't feel right. And and then obviously I knew Athriel's story. I got really obsessed with Athriel's history, because Athriel has a lot of history that obviously you won't know about in this book, but there's so much. Oh, I'm so excited to explore that. And once I knew that, it became clear where these impures came from, why they are the way they are, like that boy when he's really, really creepy. There's a lot of that you will understand more in book 2 as to why sometimes it turns out the way it is, why Willow was sometimes more lucid, sometimes not, and how it all worked, how it ended up in her, things like that. So I can't say too much, but yeah, those scenes were very creepy. Very.
There's also just something about eyes that makes everything creepy.
Yes, the black eyes and the veins. I have like a picture, and that was exactly what I envisioned. And it's so creepy. And so in my head, I was like, you can't look like that and not be really creepy. Like, to be honest, you're saying that scene was creepy. I found the library scene creepy, you know, when he came in the library. That was really creepy when I was writing that, and then they all kind of came out, and there was the whole fight, and you know, Ajax and Aemon came. But yeah, they are really creepy individuals, the impures, very.
Is it with Athriel sort of coming out of her? He at the end says something like that she was never just a vessel, and it kind of sounded like he wanted to be with her, and I was wondering if that was like well, he lived in her head, so it was more like a brother sister kind of a thing, or like a romantically kind of a thing?
I can't say much because book 2, but what I can say is you almost have to separate Athriel into 2 people. The Athriel that's in Adina that doesn't know who he is, and the Athriel outside of Adina that remembers everything.
Right.
That's all I can say. Is that there's the 2 very specific sides. When he is entrapped within Adina, he does not remember his past life. He doesn't know who he is. That's part of the curse. He doesn't remember anything, how he got there. He doesn't remember any of that. So the only experience he has is of living in this human girl. As he comes out, he remembers who he is. He remembers how he got there, and he remembers why and what came before it, which you'll start to learn in book 2.
But maybe
Yeah.
some of the experiences he had with Adina will come into play later.
Who knows? Maybe. Book 2.
I'm gonna let you.
You'll learn a lot more about him in book 2. A lot more about Athriel. Yeah.
That's really really exciting. I'm gonna let Talia ask one question, but first I have to say that we have 10 minutes left. So if anyone watching at home wants to ask a question as well, you can write it in the chat now, and we can take it after Thalia's. I'm sorry, not Thalia's. Talita's next question.
I'm used to
I just read to reading the Percy Jackson series again.
Ooh.
And but Talita, if you have a question more.
I think I'm all out of questions now. She won't answer
You
any
have
of
some
them.
good ones, to be fair.
Then I
have
have a
good ones.
question that we have touched upon, because Adina seems almost compassionate to a fault, because she feels bad for most characters we see in this book. How has she managed to preserve this quality in this horrible world she's living in? Because she has a demon in her head, and she's being tortured, and she's seeing murders, and she still feels for people.
Her compassion is only for humans in the beginning. So her compassion is for the experience she can understand, which is her own. She can understand what it's like to be made to feed, especially with Jace in the beginning. She knows what it is like to be a new blood and have no idea what you're doing, to be taunted and to be at near death if you are seen as weak, essentially. And she has some levels of privilege because of the potency of her blood, that she can sometimes push things a little bit further and not be killed, but she still gets hurt, like with the scene with Vincent. So her compassion really is kind of where humans are concerned. It's only, I would say, in the second half of the book she starts to get compassion for vampires, and that really starts with Isa, and that is mainly because she sometimes forgets that Isa's a vampire, because obviously she doesn't have the black eyes, she doesn't have the big strength that they have, and so she almost oftentimes Isa's her gateway into having compassion for vampires, because she often can forget that Isa's this vampire. She almost sees her as another human, which is why she spoke up when Ajax and Kaya's mom was so horrible to her, because it felt like she was defending a human. And then it started to transcend into, well, she starts to see them a little bit more like humans, and then she has a bit more compassion. But in the beginning, that compassion really is just reserved for humans. She doesn't care about anything outside of that. She has no interest, and it really is mostly just humans who are experiencing what she's experiencing, which is pure bloods.
Yeah.
And that is it, really. She learns to extend that compassion as the book goes on.
Yeah, and then perhaps that mirrors the experience she has with the female servant whose sister she kills accidentally, because she's one of the first humans she doesn't feel compassion for.
Yeah, she feels a lot of guilt when she obviously realizes that, because in her head she thinks about how many times she's seen vampires lose control and kill a human, and in her head she's very much like, there's no excuse for it, and then she does it, and she has this power that she can't control. She wasn't even really lucid when she killed that girl, because obviously it was when she was siphoning Carius's power. So she has no actual recollection of killing that girl. She remembers hearing something and hearing people scream and say she's dead. But she doesn't remember. But then she kind of, again, that makes her question everything, because it makes her think, well, when I've seen vampires kill, have they lost control like that? And is that an excuse, or is it not? And it's almost very, very confusing in that she doesn't really want to fight that girl, because again, she's always pro-human. But you can also understand why that girl would hate her and want to do that, because she puts herself in that place of, if it was Willow, there's nobody that could say, oh, it was an accident. She wouldn't take that. She would go on the warpath. So again, there's just a lot of layers to her learning and her growth. She's a very fun character because she has such interesting views, and she's very stubborn to a fault.
She's headstrong, as you said.
Yeah, very.
I have a question here from Instagram. It's you. The book mentions the gods a lot, but we don't really hear what they're like and what the pantheon looks like.
Who's this?
What?
Did you say the gods?
Yeah, the gods, the old gods, I would think.
Oh, the old
they
gods.
are mentioning.
Yeah, that's on purpose. You will learn a lot about the old gods later on, because it eventually will all tie together. It's very purposeful, because also the story is told from Adina's perspective. So I can only give you what Adina knows, and Adina doesn't know anything about the old gods. She knows that they exist. She knows that they disappeared. She doesn't know anything about them. But there are people that do.
I won't dig too much into the fact that there's a clear line between old gods and something else. I will let that be a surprise for the viewers, but I have noted it, Charlene. Know that it has been picked up upon.
There's some clues if you go back, I think. There's a few clues. Yeah. But you'll definitely learn more as the series goes on. The gods will come into play a lot. A lot. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then I also have another question from the chat, which is Finn's family and background. If he is your favorite character, will we hear more about that?
Love him. You will definitely find out more. Not just about Finn, but about the non-potent humans, because they live a very different life. And admittedly, when I first started writing the book, I didn't know that non-potent humans existed until Finn came about, because I thought, for me, I try to be logical in everything. So when she went to the apothecary, I was thinking, well, why would he be there and not at a blood house? And the only logical way was that he didn't have potency, so there was no point feeding from him. So we had to have another purpose, which is to serve in some sort of way, keep humans healthy and fit for vampires. So yeah, you'll learn a lot more about that non-potent world, because we got a glimpse of some of the things that they have going on, and we can see that they're maybe not as obedient as the purebloods, and so that will definitely come into play.
I feel like you're giving us a lot of breadcrumbs, and it's really exciting, and it's almost a perfect note to end on, because then you can go back to writing finishing the second book, so that we can find out where all these breadcrumbs are leading to. Charlene and Talita, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so fun talking to both of you and hearing your questions and answers, and of course reading your book. And thank you to everybody who has been watching, and to those who wrote us questions. To those at home, I also want to mention that we are in 2 weeks going to have a book club for the next month's book, and for 4 weeks from now we're going to have another author talk with our next amazing author, and we have available spots in both the book club and the author talk. So if you want to join us like Talita did today, you can write to us at Book in a Box, and we will see if it fits in our schedules and stuff. But thank you so much, you two, for coming. I really enjoyed it. Charlene, do you have anything you want to promote before we go offline?
Just look out for book 2. And look out, maybe this year, maybe keep your eye out on audiobooks. Just keep your eye out. That's all. Keep an eye out. See what pops up new.
We're gonna do that. So Lita, do you have anything you wanna
No, well,
do you have an
I'm also
Instagram?
excited about the audiobook, but I'm really excited for book 2, especially with all the answers we didn't have an answer to yet, with all the questions we didn't have an answer to yet. So no, I'm really curious. I really wanted to read. Well, I was actually kind of sad I read the arc, not because because of the arc, but it takes way longer for the second book
Yeah,
to read.
it does.
But I am still in your arc team, I believe, so I'm looking forward to book 2. I will praise it
Perfect.
on Instagram.
Oh, thank you. No, thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me. It's been great. I've really enjoyed, those were great questions. So thank you.
Yeah, and I guess that's all we have to say. So goodbye.
Bye.
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 And